we have to talk about the changes to Tazavesh, the MegaDungeon, and Blizzard's changes to the MegaDungeon. Now, for those of you that isn't aware, Tazavesh, the MegaDungeon, were supposed to have upgradable gear. So gear would drop at a base item level, and then you would be able to upgrade that gear as and when, as and when you achieved more valor. This was sort of supposed to be the way in upgrading it. They've now changed it to where the item level is 226 right off the bat, and this is what gives you, this is all you need from Tazavesh. Now, I am sort of split on whether or not I agree with this change, but before we get into it, can I get a feel from chat? How many of you like this change? Alright, so I'll explain to you. Based on what I'm seeing, some people are a little bit indifferent, some people don't necessarily have too much of a fucking opinion on it, and other people seem to really dislike the change. This is another example, first and foremost, of Blizzard fixing problems that doesn't exist. Which seems to be the new sort of normal within Blizzard Entertainment. I don't know who is the problem solver in Blizzard, but that guy works really hard. Like, he discovers issues before players even do. It's incredible to me. I've never seen anything like it in my life. The players will do something and they'll be like, oh, this is really cool. And then that guy discovers that there's actually a problem and he just immediately fixes it, right? Or just like immediately fixes the problem. And yeah, I don't know. Someone needs to pay that guy more because he's the only guy that sees these problems that is supposed to happen. Or supposedly happening. Now, here's where things, as far as I'm concerned, fall flat. And this is where we get again into more of the philosophical side of World of Warcraft. Who is Tazavesh designed for? Who is supposed to be the people, the player base, that engages with Tazavesh? I'm not talking about with this. I'm talking about before this change happened. Who were the people that was actually meant to engage with Tazavesh? Some pre-raid gearing, although pre-raid gearing has been sort of exclusive for a long time for Mythic Plus, right? Not really. You're not gonna. You might do Tazavesh for some of the items there, but for the most part, you're gonna do Mythic Plus if you want to really gear, right? Tazavesh and MegaDungeons like Tazavesh, to my mind, is for the casual and the semi-hardcore audience. This is your audience that does sort of normal raids, maybe does a little bit of heroic raids, maybe they're really try-harding heroic raids right up until the last week of the patch before they finally get the final boss on Heroic Dead, and your casual audience, so people like me who no longer do hardcore content. I would do something like Tazavesh and it would be a lot of fun for me. Now, giving me something to work towards, in other words, items that drop and I can upgrade those items over time, seems like a fairly good idea. Because it continues giving me reasons to go back into the dungeon that I will probably already enjoy because I've seen a lot of footage of Tazavesh and it looks like a really fun dungeon. So I'm going to enjoy running Tazavesh. And I'm going to be able to do Tazavesh for a long time as I'm upgrading my gear, but also upgrading my gear from Korthia and, you know, getting some Mythic Plus pieces here and there. Because I'm casual, I don't do high-level Mythic Plus, so this gives me another thing to work towards. So from when I look at the player base that was supposed to enjoy Tazavesh, upgradable gear makes a hell of a lot of sense. With one change, the dungeon no longer makes a whole lot of sense to me. Because now I'm looking at this and I'm going, maybe I need 1 or 2 items in this dungeon. They're going to drop and I'm going to be done. There's going to be literally no other reason for me to do this dungeon again. Because, well, it's a long dungeon, first and foremost. There's no real reward past the first time that I did it. So why would I fucking do it? I'm clear on that it was a lower item level when you could upgrade it, but at the end of the day, that's something that appeals to the casual audience. For the casual audience, I think this would have been fun. It would have been a fun thing to just sort of get themselves a little bit, shall we say, a little bit more interested in the content. And then they go and they add this, which we also just learned. Tazavesh MegaDungeon has a hard mode difficulty for patch 9.1. Love this. Absolutely love this. But it could have worked so much better if you could upgrade your gear and hard mode maybe gave you extra valor. Right? So if you did do a boss on hard mode, you would get extra valor so that you could actually upgrade your gear a little bit more. I don't see the reason for this change. So let me just be clear. I'm not against this change. I think I should have been clear from the beginning, because it seems like people think I have a massive problem with this change. I'm not against this change. It's more that I don't understand the change. I don't understand the reasons for the change, because I don't see this fixing anything. Like, I don't think this actually fixes anything, because I don't think there was a problem to begin with. I mean, if your base problem was that the item level was too low and that wouldn't be incentive enough for people to do the dungeon, then just allow people to upgrade the fucking gear a little bit more, and then there's no reason to worry, right? Because now the item level has been fixed and people would actually want to do the dungeon. The hard modes, I actually love this. This is something I wish more dungeons had. This is actually, by the way, this is what I would do with Mythic raiding. I don't agree that Mythic raiding should be a thing. I don't think that Mythic raids should award better gear. I think every boss in the heroic raid should have a button or a mechanic that if you do it in a specific way, it triggers hard mode, and hard mode is simply your way of flexing and saying, look at me, I did every single boss on hard mode. There's too many things in fucking World of Warcraft. There's too many different difficulty levels. Gear is completely ridiculous because of it, because there's 3 different fucking levels, actually more than 3. There's 4 different levels of gear for every single piece of content, for every single fucking patch. It gets fucking ridiculous. Just lose that crap. Just let's not waste our time on more difficulty settings. Let's just have a hard mode that is literally you being able to flex on everyone else. Look at me, bitch. I did this on fucking hard mode, right? And then there could be a cool fucking piece of cosmetic loot from the hard mode that gives you the ability to do it, right? And now you feel very proud because you have this really cool piece of gear. All in all, Blizzard strikes again with their incredible changes to problems that no one voiced and problems that no one had, but fixes that come none the fucking less. And for this, I'll spend just a few minutes talking about the most recent change to the conduit energy, which again makes no fucking sense to me. So now you're getting a conduit energy every single time you go up 1 renown. Why not just remove like, I don't fucking understand. Why not just remove conduit energy? The only people that is impacted by conduit energy is the very people that would not mind if it didn't exist in the fucking game. Because I don't care what you're saying. If you are in a heroic guild that forces you to swap your fucking conduits between bosses, your guild should stop fucking raiding. They are try-harding easy content way too fucking much. If you are in a heroic only guild, you should not be expected to swap conduits on every single fucking boss. The only people that ever should be expected to be switching conduits between every single fight are people that is literally the 1% of the player base who does bosses that is far harder than what their gear actually allow for. So they are pushing, which means 1% is the difference between wipe and not wipe. So they are trying to figure out, how do I get perfect? How do I get absolutely perfect? That 1 extra % damage that's going to push us over the top. Those are the only people that really care about conduit energy, because they are the only people that's affected by it. The rest of you would have, it wouldn't matter. Conduit energy, if it was removed, it would change your game in no way, shape, or form. It would impact you in no way, shape, or form. And yet Blizzard seems to think that they're doing the player base a fucking favor by not removing it from the game, by keeping it in there. So you're punishing the group of players that actually want to do these things. And here's what I don't understand. And this is actually something that speaks to Ian more so than to anyone else. Ian Azikostas used to be the leader of Elitist Jerks. He used to be the guy that runs Elitist Jerks. Elitist Jerks was all about min-maxing. It was literally, it existed for min-maxing. Why does Ian hate min-maxing so much? Why has min-maxing become such a huge issue for Blizzard developers? Is there anyone in chat that has any ideas about this as to why this could be the case? It seems like every single expansion, Blizzard goes further and further into this. No, we don't want people to min-max. It should just always be fucking obvious, right? It should just always be, there should just be really one good choice, and that's the only choice that you're going to get. And anything that would allow people to min-max, we're going to stop that and say, no thanks, there's conduit energy, so you can't min-max. Sorry, the game stops you from doing that. I remember, by the way, back in the day, being a hardcore raider, playing my Affliction Warlock, actually playing my Warlock, where I would not only swap talents and gear, like I remember my bags was an absolute fucking mess, because every single boss, you would have different pieces of gear, because some bosses would have some cleave, and you would have a cleave, literally a cleave set. Then you would also have a full AoE spec. You would have a single target spec. You would have a single target heavy movement spec. All of these were different kinds of equipment sets, where, you know, because you need to move a lot, you're going to boost haste so that your dots are doing more damage on your Affliction Warlock. I also remember swapping specs in between bosses. Some bosses, destruction was higher, so you would go destruction with a specific type of set. Other bosses, you would have demonology being higher, so you would go demonology with a specific equipment set. So you would always be swapping. Literally, every single boss was basically you changing everything around to do that boss, to ensure that you do that boss optimally and do it as good as humanly possible. That is part of the reason why I loved raiding, because that was the mini game for raiders. And I realized that for many players who is very casual, that sounds extremely boring. And you think to yourself, oh my god, I don't want to do that. That sounds fucking miserable. But it wasn't. Not for me. Not for the players like me that loved, absolutely adored raiding, because for us that was the game within the game. That was the fun part of raiding. And every single time you got a new piece of gear, you couldn't equip it because you would first have to go spend an entire evening off the raid theory crafting this piece of gear, making sure that this piece of gear was actually going to be better. And then I remember actually having reforging be a thing, where you would also go and figure out, wait, can I reforge this to a better thing? That was the fun thing for me and for raiders like me, because that was the stuff that we lived for. It wasn't just raiding, it was everything around raiding. And nowadays it feels like Blizzard they don't want any of it, right? They're prepared to say, fuck it, no more, never again. We're just gonna have one size fits all. That's the sort of game we want people to play. So you log in, that's the game. You never have to change anything else. And it's sort of sad to see. It is sort of a sad moment as far as I'm concerned. I don't know, maybe it is just me.